Mozambique is intensifying. Health officials there say the number of cases in the country's main port city has doubled in just the past 2 days to 271. NPR's Ophebia Quist-Arcton reports the outbreak follows a deadly cyclone that struck more than 2 weeks ago.
After a sharp increase in the number of cholera cases announced earlier in the week, Mozambique's government says there has been another spike in the coastal port city, Beira. It's been over 2 weeks since Cyclone Idai swept through Beira and other parts of Mozambique, swallowing up homes, schools and health centres and leaving tens of thousands of people without refuge or clean water. The authorities are gearing up for a massive cholera vaccination campaign in a bid to curb the spread of the waterborne disease that is especially hard on already weakened children. Relief workers are seeking to contain the cholera outbreak. More than 700 people have been killed in Mozambique, Zimbabwe and Malawi, the 3 southern African countries hit by the cyclone and storm waters. Ophebia Quist-Arcton, NPR News.
22 Arab leaders are in Tunisia for the start of the annual Arab League summit. They say they're unified in condemning the Trump administration's move to recognize Israeli control over the Golan Heights, which Israel seized from Syria in the 1967 Six-Day War. And they say Middle East stability depends on the creation of a Palestinian state. But Arab leaders remain sharply divided over several other issues, including Syria and Yemen. I'm Barbara Klein, NPR News in Washington.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Hello there. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and I have the most exciting second hour of tonight's show. I am welcoming Lee Harris. Lee is just fascinating. He has a brand new book out, Energy Speaks, and I'm going to tell you that that book speaks actually for Lee as well. He is one of the most motivational people I know. I have followed him for almost a decade in his work and writings and videos, and I am thrilled and honored to be able to welcome you to Fate Mag Radio, Lee. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me and for, taking all your energy and effort to create this space.
Well, you're welcome. I'm just thrilled to have you here. I am so amazed by your book. I read it and then I was going back through it today trying to get some questions. I had so much trouble because your book literally is a personal experience I believe you'll find for everyone who picks it up.
I've been hearing that from people. It's nice. It's nice how many people have been saying to me that that the personal resonance is incredibly strong.
It is. And I have read your work seriously for about 8 years.
Wow.
I am very impressed by your presentation of what are generally hard concepts for people to grasp, and they help me. Your newsletter has always been helpful to me. Your videos are amazing. Y'all can check him out. He will be letting you know how to do that. The book is on Amazon, isn't it?
It is. It just came out Tuesday of this week,
Yes,
and
the 26th.
It's on Amazon worldwide. You'll find it in Barnes and Noble stores and other bookstores around the country. Certainly in the US, I can vouch for that. I have a feeling in Europe it's maybe a week or two from now, unless you pre-order it.
And it's called Energy Speaks.
Yes.
And it really is different channelings, right, that you've received?
Yes, so the subheading of the book is Messages from Spirit on Living, Loving and Awakening. I was someone who was very needing metaphysics and spirituality and self-growth in my own life in my late teens and my early 20s. And I had this unexpected experience of suddenly hearing my guides one day. So this is various messages from them over the years, about the last 10 or 12 years, and we've chosen chapters that really reflect a kind of diverse array of what is it to be human on this planet. So, we have chapters on abundance and the relationship with money, chapters on the relationship with others, chapters on relationship with sleep, chapters on sex and sexual energy. And we spent quite a lot of time on the editing process and the layout process to try and make the book really accessible and user-friendly and usable, so that, as you said, some of this stuff can be quite... it can be quite high concept. And for me, I'm fairly pragmatic in my work and in my approach to life. So I like to try and bring the more esoteric to the ground.
The esoteric to the ground. I like that. And we have someone in chat who wants to know what the origin of your accent is.
Oh, so I'm British, yes. And I lived in England until I was 2012, and then I moved to the States.
Okay, there you go. So, we are all Anglophiles at heart here. So,
well, and I always say to people, because I hear that, and I always say, yeah, but you guys were really cool to me. Like when I was a kid, and I'm sure to many British people growing up, we would see American TV shows and we'd be like, wow, that's so cool. So I think there's a bit of a mutual love affair between the Brits and the Americans.
I think so too. And I met my first British national that was still residing there in Toronto when I was 13.
Ah, great,
So
great.
it was just an interesting exchange. We were actually at the Ontario Science Centre, and just the spark was there as far as a friendship thing. And it was don't you love when that happens? It's like you're
Oh, yeah.
running into a cousin or something.
Definitely a soul connection.
Yes. Even that young. But
And
it was...
and Canada is kind of, to me, the bridge between the US and England. And, that was another place that I fell in love with and considered living in. But I feel like that Canada, to me, the kind of energy there in the people is a little bit of a hybrid between the US brightness and the British reserve, and kind of, somewhere in the middle of those two.
I would agree with that. I think that the Canadians are so mellow.
Yeah.
As a whole.
Yeah. But
Maybe
know
it's
why?
because they stay inside because it's so cold.
No, you know what it is? I stayed with a family, a wonderful family, when I was about 24. I was there for a self-growth workshop that I was attending. And I was like, wow, everyone's so peaceful here. And then on the Sunday night, the night before I left, they said, oh, we're going to watch the ice hockey game. Do you want to watch it with us? And I was like, oh, okay. I'd never watched ice hockey. And oh my God, they changed. They were all like, rah, rah. And I was like, oh my God, this is violence on ice. So
Yes.
my theory about the Canadians is they have a really good outlet for it. It's like all of the aggression or the kind of rah goes into the ice hockey, and then they're just serene and peaceful the rest of the time.
Well, you have to let go of it somewhere, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. These energies are around for all of us to process. Yeah.
Well, I think you're spot on.
Well,
Because I have friends
yeah.
in up on Cape Breton Island who watch American football, college football, and they get it out with the hockey and now football.
And it's funny, 'cause I think in England we have football, so which I know you guys refer to often as soccer. So yeah, I think every country has its outlet for some of this stuff.
Yes. Well, y'all have very rough football and
Oh,
rugby.
yeah. And people take it very seriously.
Yes,
Very
it's almost a
seriously.
religion.
Oh yeah, big time.
I mean, even I know the names of y'all's teams.
Yeah, but you probably know more than me. So my dad was a
I know
semi-professional.
too.
Yeah, he was a semi-pro footballer, and my brother was really good at football. So football was in my house, but it was not something I connected with at all. But yeah, I'm kind of a borrowed fan through my dad and my brother. But yeah, most British people know a lot about football and assume that you will know a lot about football.
They do.
Yeah,
They do assume that.
yeah, yeah.
So, well, one of the things that, and this is in the beginning of the book, so people, you will come across this quickly once you get Lee's book, Energy Speaks, and open it. It's so empowering. The first time I read through this, I couldn't do it because it was quite overwhelming to me. But when I went back through it, I was determined to do the taking my power back. Because you were right. We disperse that as we go.
Yeah. And I think the origin of that channel was about 12, 13 years ago. And for me at the time, it was pretty landmark. And I know for the room I delivered it to, it was very impactful. And I think what I've come across in all my years doing this work and going around the world and in different workshop rooms around the world is that often a common thread for people who identify as light workers, maybe that isn't a word that you associate with, but you see yourself as someone who believes in something bigger than the rest of perhaps the world do, or traditional thinking. So, you believe that there are other forces out there than what we are all focused on. This group often have this experience of wanting to work for the light or for the good of others, or for perhaps lifting the energy of a room or lifting the energy of a person. And while it's very well intentioned and it can certainly be your core way of being, there are often ways that we have learned to give our power away and compromise in ways that hurt us. And the vibrational or energetic truth is that if you compromise in a way that causes you to suffer, you are never actually really helping the other person. Now, I'll give you an example. A parent doesn't see it that they're suffering when they're making compromises for their child, because they are devoted to that child. They have elected that this is going to be a primary relationship that they're going to serve. So that's a tricky one when you look at parenting. But if we just look at friendships or business partnerships or intimate relationships, if you are compromising yourself in a way that's hurting you to try and make someone else happy, and they aren't necessarily either noticing that or benefiting from that, then everyone's got a problem. And often, because light workers want to see the room be lighter or brighter, they will work harder to try and make that happen until they get to the point where they start to either have a few bad relationships, intimate business or friendship, or really start to look at the balance of energy and trust that perhaps as a kid they had to try and take care of the room. Perhaps they had a dysfunctional parent or situation. But now as adults, we actually have the opportunity to figure out what is our own personal energy balance, and to not necessarily feel beholden to energies at our shoulder or in the wider world that are discordant, and it's not necessarily our job to solve them. But that often what happens is when we think it is, we tend to give our power away and we lose energy. And so that chapter is really designed to help you call back pieces of your personal power so that you can start to live in a much more centered and free way.
I found it very emotional. It's like I had baggage attached to that process. So, and I am a light worker. So when I was trying to deal with it, going through the book the first time, it was just really pretty raw to me.
It's interesting that you say that, Kat, because I'm definitely a recovering people pleaser. And so that shows up for me still in much smaller ways. And the difference now is that I catch it when it happens versus, many years ago, getting myself in some god awful situations that I would stay in for months or years or whatever. So I think the fact that you say it's raw, and I'm hopeful that the book can be a safe space for you to explore that stuff. I think that actually is testament to your willingness to go there. Because, you can read something like this and stay detached from it or stay mental. But the fact that you actually felt some raw emotion is actually a really good thing, because it means that you were in your safe space, in your bedroom or wherever you were reading the book, and that you were able to just bring a layer of energy to the surface that perhaps you're not always able to bring to the surface. And this is the thing about our wounds. Our wounds are just compressed energy. So, for example, if I had been chastised by my parents or my teachers about my artwork as a young kid,